Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Nordic Championships. My name is Jake Kitbrain Matthews, and I'm joined by Dan Orcs Harrison as we are kicking off week 4 of action here. Man, we are over that halfway mark now in the season. It's getting quite exciting. Things are starting to fall in place. How are you feeling coming into week 4?
Well, it's a big one. We obviously have the games today are the last ones from the first round of the round robin.
Yeah.
And then tomorrow is when we start getting rematches in. I think that's where things get interesting because you get to see the comparison between how they fared in their first matchup and in the second one. We've seen teams that have started rough in the likes of Nordic and then started to bring things together. Atlando, Hillerod as well, definitely not having the best opener. But then we've also seen teams like Singularity, who had a massive undefeated streak, have started to show a little bit of a sign of cracks towards the end, and
yeah.
I think that's it sort of sets things up for some interesting storylines going into the second half. But we still have to finish off the round robin today, and it's essentially just cleaning up those last matchups that haven't been played yet.
Well, before we get into that, let's have a little look at the standings and see where all of our teams are currently sitting here. Team Singularity in first place, 5-1. Vipers Inc. hot on their trail, though. They are locked into second. Hillerod and Dusty and Bifrost are all still tied. Same with Atlando, Hybrid and Nordavin. So still a lot towards this kind of middle to lower tier of the ladder so far to kind of be settled. And after today, we should have a better idea of where our teams are going to start to place as we hit onto that second stage of the round robin. Let's have a little look at our schedule as well and see what we've got going on today. So we'll be starting the day off with Bifrost versus Atlando Esports. Then we have Hybrid versus Hillerod. Vipers Inc. taking on Nordavin. We rounded it out with Dusty versus Team Singularity. Orcs, what game are you excited for?
I mean, I think all of them are big games to be excited for, but I think particularly the last two, we have Vipers, who they're still near the top of the standings, even though they got beaten by Singularity. They're going to go up against Nordavin, who started to show a bit more life in their games. And then Dusty against Singularity. Again, Dusty are a team that have shown they can get very close to closing that out against even the best teams. They have started to sort of fix those issues up. And then they're going up against Singularity, who, as I said, really strong performers so far, but not flawless. And it should be a close match, that last one.
Well, let's have a little look at our first matchup. It's going to be Bifrost versus Atlando. What are we making coming into this? These two teams are fairly close in the standings, but remember, like, what's quite exciting is the middle and the bottom are so close that, you know, one loss could throw you from potentially top 4 all the way down to the bottom. It's really, really tied at the moment.
Yeah, and for this match, it's two teams who are massively inconsistent in the fact that Bifrost has managed to beat both Singularity and Vipers. Before last week, they were the only team to have actually beaten both of those rosters, which is pretty... Well, actually, it was last week they beat Singularity, but the fact that they managed to beat the top 2 rosters in the league and then lose to everyone else so far, apart from Hillerod, is a little bit of a confusing one. It just shows that they have a lot of different styles they've been trying to implement. Some of them haven't worked at all. Some of them have been perfectly placed to defeat their opponents. And Atlando as well, when they get the draft that suits them, when they're firing all cylinders, I think with Facer on the roster, it's definitely helped them drastically. But I think him and their bot lane, Thor and Fred, they're the critical elements if they want to succeed here. So it's going to be interesting. I think draft is going to tell a huge story here because, as I said, a lot of the inconsistencies for these teams have come from drafts in the sense that they've shown variety of different styles. Some of them have worked, some of them haven't. And I think now is the point where you want to start refining that. You go towards that second round robin, you're like, okay, we've worked out how we want to be as a team. We can start to just focus on our strengths and carry that through and pick up some wins towards playoffs.
Well, pretty excited to see what's going to happen here. Obviously, like you said, Bifrost, on paper, you'd expect them to take this win, but those inconsistencies, those maybe more experimental drafts could catch them out here. So do head into picks and bans. The Gragas, first ban away, followed up by the Sona. We still are on 10-3, so Sona and Soroka still going to be annoyingly present in the top lane, so hopefully going to see a fair few bans towards that area because
no one wants to see that.
It was exciting the first time you see it because it's new and like, oh, that's kind of an interesting way to play. And then after you've seen it a couple of times, you're like, all right, this is really dull.
Yeah, Yumi as well.
Let's play set. Let's play stuff like fights.
Yumi as well, really powerful at the moment. And we've seen, I think, when we first start up on the patch, obviously there's a lot of theory crafting that goes into it. There's trying new things out. But at this point, you know, we've seen the major leagues play on 10.3. We've seen a lot of what they're prioritizing. I think the teams have a pretty good grasp on what they should be banning away and they don't want to deal with. I think the Ornn has really, it's been a staple for a long time, but playing it mid has risen in priority, especially paired up with the likes of a Karthus, where you're essentially giving that free priority to that champion and setting them up to scale extremely well. Interesting to see the Varus banned away from Thor. It's something he's picked consistently, so pushed him off comfort a little bit. And then the Jarvan away from Shackle, which his best game was on Jarvan, and I think overall in the league, it's been a really strong pick because it's very easy at not only applying early pressure, but setting up those team fights. Now, we still have things like the Soraka open for that first pick. We have Aphelios potentially as an option, but actually...
Fiana finally gets his hands on the Riven. That's the lock-in there.
It's a confident pick.
That's a strong blind pick. I mean, not a strong blind pick in the sense that you should always pick it. It's strong as in mentally strong to pick that up.
And it's kind of calling Andreas out and saying, what can you answer this with? And the typical answer is the Renekton. You can punish it pretty heavily. Level 3, you are really strong into the Riven. And they are going to lock that in. The question is, I feel like they could take a jungler in the first rotation to look to pressure it more, but instead just going for the Thresh, offering an element of safety towards Thor, which is a bit of an interesting one because we've seen Fred play a ton of Rakan, so leaning away a little bit from that for now. So they've both essentially been pushed off their big comfort picks. But it does mean if Shackle wants to go for the likes of a Lee Sin, he's going to have a difficult time making those mid to late game plays that we tend to look for from the Lee Sin.
All right, it looks like they're going to get themselves the Zyra. Bifrost with a very interesting draft so far. Picking up a few things we haven't seen so much here in the Nordic Championship. And what are they going to round this out with? What do they want to pair with? Either this Zyra or maybe they want to get a jungler. Very much up in the air right now. We'll be finding out shortly. I would like to see some kind of attention towards either the jungle or the AD carry personally. Because you've already had the Gragas and the Jarvan band away, and expect that if Atlando pick a jungler up here now for that MF's locked in, there could be a further pinch within that pool, but then same could be said for the AD carry. So we'll have to see what Atlando want to try and pick themselves up here. Don't worry, we're not going to see Nami mid. It didn't work last time. It's not going to work this time.
There's a point to mention, though, we have had the return of Jacob. Phaser not playing currently on the roster anymore, so it'll be interesting to see how that affects Atlando. They've had more success with Phaser, although I'm not necessarily saying that's on him. He did play well, especially in his Aurelion Sol game. But I think the team overall stepped up. Now, the Zyra is an interesting one. A lot of people have talked about the return of mages, and Zyra does well into Thresh in the laning phase if you isolate a 2v2. And the reason being, your plants make it extremely difficult for him to ever go for a hook, because you can essentially just spawn the plants in front of him and block it, similar to how Heimer would function in the matchup. And if it is an isolated 2v2, if Atlando can't find an engage, Bifrost bot lane will absolutely murder them. And that's why it's really important for Atlando to pick a jungler who can facilitate that pressure down in the bot lane and set this Draven up for success. Because if you get him fed, if he starts just chaining kills onto the Zyra and the Misfortune, then Atlando can definitely win this game. Bans have come through on the second rotation. We've seen the Sejuani taken away, which obviously sets up extremely well with the Renekton. Can easily double stack those stuns. And then Lee Sin and Diana denied away from Bifrost.
One last ban here for Bifrost. Are we going to see a further pinch into the jungle pool? It's already gone very, very thin right now.
Could see an Elise being banned away here. Very easy to dive top lane if you have Elise Renekton. Does get taken away, and then obviously if you set that up bot lane, it's another one of those early pressure junglers who can make a lot of impact. At the moment, the pool, as you said, has been pinched really heavily, but Olaf's still left open, and he's an extremely good jungler at punishing the Zyra, because you can throw the axes, it goes through everything. The CC offered by Zyra doesn't do very much, but it again means that Bifrost, it's going to get tricky to deal with that composition if it goes in the later stages of the game, because Olaf eventually just becomes too weak to endure the damage of a Zyra Misfortune. If he's caught in the middle of a team fight, he'll just essentially get melted through. Although Bifrost opting not to draft more scaling, they want to match the Olaf to a degree in the early pressure and pick up that Rek'Sai. And at this point, we expect it's going to be a mid laner to round out the composition. The question is going to be, what does energy want to take blind? Orianna typically can be strong in this situation, but there's still the Zoe open.
LeBlanc's open as well.
Yeah.
There's quite a lot of kind of comfortable mid picks. And it's one of the things we've seen is mid has really fallen down. The priority scaling here, people look to pick their mid up a little bit later once they know what's being locked in. That's going to be the Orianna. Like you said, a solid blind pick here. Offers good wave clear. Offers fairly decent team fight and great late game. But that's the Vel'Koz insta lock-in for Jacob here We know he likes to pick up these kind of off-meta mid laners, but what are you making of the Vel'Koz here? How does this match up into the Orianna go?
It outranges Orianna, which is a big thing. In an isolated 1v1, you just outrange her. If Orianna can get up on top of you and there's set up from a gank, then obviously it can be difficult, but by all means, that should never really happen. You can just deal with the Orianna, keeping it at arm's length and scale it pretty healthily. It's a really high skill champion, though. Obviously, a lot of skill shots, and it can be a little bit of a difficult one to play, especially if you're jumped on top of. It is pretty strong at dealing with the mobile carries, though. If there's any sort of engage coming out from Jolbu or Fred, you can just throw that laser down on top, and essentially gives Atlando an extra element towards their late game win condition, because they really don't have much going for them in the later stages. So having that Vel'Koz means they still have an avenue to pursue, but for the most part, it's very much going to be about snowballing the likes of this Draven in the bot lane, because if you leave him isolated in that 2v2, he is going to have a terrible time. And then also potentially setting up the Renekton for success, because obviously Renekton can have the pressure advantage against Riven, but this is Fiala's Riven. And on top of that, there's no guarantee that you're definitely going to be able to punish. There is a lot of skill involved in that matchup, although a lot of people favor the Renekton. He does get outscaled in the 1v1. Yeah. Unless you can keep him ahead of the curve in terms of items. And then it may be at the point where Riven never finds a footing in the matchup.
It's all about snowballing here for Atlando then. And for Bifrost, it's about playing for that outscale. Obviously, Riven, normally you like to pick for lane pressure, but it's pretty much expected. If you're going to blind lock in the Riven, Fiala must have known this Renekton was coming through. And you know this is a comfort pick for him. So we'll have to see how well he can handle Andreas on this Renekton. But as we take to the Rift for our first game here of the Nordic Championship of Week 4, it's Bifrost versus Atlando.
I think the big difference here is that, for me, Jolbu is put in a position where there is 2 lanes he has to gank. I feel like he has to try and put pressure bot lane to facilitate Thor and Fred, but also I feel like he wants to go top and shut Fiala down. The thing with Shackle on this Rek'Sai, not only is Rek'Sai a great early ganker because of the paths he can take with his tunnels, but I feel like Shackle can gank anywhere he wants. He has the freedom of choice. If he comes top to snowball Fiala, great. If he goes mid and finds the immobile Vel'Koz, great. If he goes bot, just to provide pressure for Takesec and Pedersen, they are going to have a win condition from every single avenue. The only thing he's got to be concerned about is if he runs into Jolbu, then he will be in trouble. If he tunnels in and then he gets caught out by the Olaf, that's where he has to be concerned. But I think for the most part, Jolbu has to play a really strong early game here if he's going to facilitate his team, because right now he's going to have 2 lanes that are kind of asking for his attention, and he needs to balance the pressure between them.
Well, starting up his blue alone, as we have ourselves a quick pause, unfortunately. So hopefully it won't be too long. We get ourselves sorted out.
Hopefully. I mean, I feel like we've had pauses every week so far. Hopefully it's not going to happen as we had the issues with last week. Unfortunately, we had to have a game decided for us.
Yeah.
Because one of the players wasn't able to make it back at all. But it looks like it's just a mic problem for one of the players.
Not a power cut this time.
Yeah,
no power cuts, luckily. Hopefully we don't have to have any games like that again. But for now, we'll have a little look at what we've got going on so far. So we are already back out of the pause. Energy is running the phase rush. I really like this on Orianna, especially into matchups like this, where, you know, if Jolbu runs at you, you can get yourself that kind of speed resistance.
Yeah, it makes
resistance.
It makes both the slows from Jolbu and Jacob a lot less effective. And it means you can kite away the Olaf, because essentially all you need to do is you need to dodge 1 axe, and that's often enough. And it means that Jolbu is then forced, he either chases you down or he runs after his axe to reset the cooldown. And either way, it's going to be like limiting his potential to get on top of you. So a pretty strong pick. Interested to see how this bot lane develops. It's kind of a given that the shove should go in favor of Takesec and Pedersen, but they have to be cautious because there are opportunities for all-ins to come in. If either of them step up too far, the burst potential between this bot lane is pretty huge, but it's not necessarily a given, and I think having the early priority and setting up a wave is important. But it looks like in the bot lane, they all both ended up hitting level 2 at the same time. For now, up top, Andreas pressured on the tower a bit. And as I said earlier, Renekton, he doesn't really actually win this matchup level 1, even level 2. It's level 3 when you have all your abilities, you can build up your rage, where you're comfortable in this matchup. Prior to that, you're kind of starved of rage, can't use it to empower your abilities. And Riven pretty strong at level 1, the fact that she can obviously use her Q 3 times, get the knock up as well, and stack her passive.
Yeah, it stacks the Conqueror really hard as well with it. It's one of the strongest kind of Conqueror stackers at level 1 there is. Shackle going for an invade, but that side of the jungle is completely empty. So he's not going to be able to find anything here. It's just going to get the crab for himself. And bot lane is fairly equal, fairly neutral in its position so far. It's kind of sitting in the middle of the lane. Energy, obviously this range problems here in the mid lane. He has got himself a shove, but it's taking a little bit of poke. Jacob's taking pretty much as he's getting, though, giving as well, though.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to shove in as the Orianna, because obviously you get that empowered auto-attack damage. You have the short cooldown on your Q, which is great for the AoE. But ultimately, there will come a point where the Vel'Koz can just cut through the waves easily himself, and then he just outranges you, and you can't pressure it too much. See quite some heavy trades coming down bot lane. But this does put Takeset and Pedersen in a position to go for a cheetah recall, which means they shove the wave in, they can recall, buy items, and get back before the wave hits their tower, so essentially just giving themselves an item advantage. Thor is going to be stuck there, catching the minions. Although actually looks like they're going to go for a recall here and not shove it all the way out. But this does mean now the wave's going to slow push towards Bifrost. They can freeze it in this situation. And that makes it extremely difficult. If you're up against a Rek'Sai, because there's a potential for him to sort of tunnel in behind you and find an avenue to punish, because it's extremely hard to ward early against that. So it could be a little bit dangerous towards the bot lane. You'll see top. Andreas hit his level 3. He's able to get some pressure back, shove back towards Fiala, and then even go through the enemy jungle and get some vision control.
We actually saw Jacob and Energy reset mid lane, and Jacob teleports back into lane, and Energy obviously running the heal can't teleport in, so Jacob was able to shove and deny a wave, but that actually hasn't really cost Energy too much. Because of that early shoving pressure he got on the Orianna, he's up in CS. Now it's neutral, but that's with most of a wave lost mid lane as well for him, so he's pretty happy with the current state of that. Jolbu is going to spot out Shackle here.
It's a bit risky for Shackle. I mean, he has priority bot lane, but Takeset just got chunked out, and you're not stronger than this Olaf right now.
Yeah, he doesn't have to take priority mid lane either, though, so he has to use his tunnel to get away from that. And the Infernal Drake will be stopped for now by Atlando.
A little bit ambitious for Shackle to start that one up. I guess he was mostly leaning on the bot lane priority, but Takeset took a heavy trade, got chunked out, and essentially just stopped that play from being allowed to happen. And as a result, Shackle a little bit down in farm. He's 2 camps down, and as a result, down in levels, which is rough. And Thor really getting punished in this lane. It's not a fun one, but neither junglers really had an impact in the early levels so far.
Who does that favor? We have talked a little bit about scaling, but as we're approaching the mid game, does that favor anybody here, or is it more just fairly a neutral thing?
It favors Bifrost because I think the Misfortune, Zyra, massive team fighters, and also if they can stay in an isolated 2v2, they can pick up advantages. They have a small CS lead. It's not too massive though. And essentially, if Renekton isn't punishing Riven, every level she gains is another level that can't be punished. Well, actually going pretty aggressive and trading on a Thor, but he's just able to walk out. Dragon picked up by Jolbu, but even then, yeah, that's not too impactful. It's good to get that dragon on the table. Start stacking those up in case you need Soul to be a win condition. But it's not exactly a game changer in this situation. It's interesting, both these junglers opting for early pressure, early skirmishes, and nothing's really come from it.
Might be a little bit more about the waves than anything here, as it looks like actually having a potential lane slot swap come out as Thor and Fred moving towards this top side of the map. Bifrost, they have recalled, and they've actually seemed to have cooled that as well. So they're going to be able to match this in time. It's the triple Dorans for Takeset, along with 2 longswords. So he has a lot of early pressure here. I want to see these junglers try and abuse that, try and get something in favor of them. The Rift Shell will be spawning up soon, so I expect to skirmish around that part of the map. For the moment, Bifrost, they do have some vision around there. They've got control. They've got the Scuttle Crab as well.
Yeah, it was a good move. Shackle came up early, even though Bifrost bot lane was actually later on the reset. Because Shackle came up early, he was able to set up a little bit of vision in the river. He's now clearing his bot side and then should path up towards the top. It's actually a little bit early for a swap for Herald, but, you know, with Dragon already down, there's no reason to stay bot lane. and essentially it means you can try and contest and get priority over the lane. But the issue is right now is the amount of lifesteal available on Thor. Even if Pedersen gets a huge trade onto him, he can just heal it up so quickly because he has the double Dorans, each offering 3%, the 10% on the Vamp Scepter, and that's ignoring any potential lifesteal within runes. So really hard to poke this Draven out right now.
All right, well, looks like Fiala very comfortable in this as Jolbu actually going to start up the Rift Herald. And we got a blue buff handoff going over as well. Yeah, they now finally will head over and see if they can spot it. Shackle seen on a ward. This is just Herald gone. They just take it before they can do any reaction. Hook does land down onto Energy. Energy has to flash away. First blood picked up by 4. Bifrost, that was just complete misplay.
Not sure what the thought process was there for Bifrost. They walk in a little bit lost. They don't have the priority in their lanes. They're late to the Herald. And then critically, Energy oversteps. Fred lands a great hook from the Thresh. They get a pick, and now they're getting some plates mid as well. Bifrost just kind of caught sleeping there.
Yeah, doing their blue buff, kind of not really thinking of it too much, and now they're going to lose a lot of plates mid, but they won't lose first turret. That's key for them here. As Andreas and Jolbu are looking to see if they can make something happen in this mid lane, in this bot lane, sorry. A couple of members from Bifrost have been sent up to the mid lane to catch the wave as Energy is making his way towards the rest of his team, but flashless, healless, going to be very, very exposed, and Jacob and Jolbu might be able to set something up onto Zoriana to try and punish Energy for getting caught earlier.
Big factor, not having the summoners available. For now, things slowing down a bit. You can see a pick actually potentially being looked for on the top side. So Atlando, because they went for that mid lane tower late on the reset. Pedersen.
Yeah, they're looking to catch Pedersen out. They use everything onto him. He flashes over the wall. Shaco chases in, uses that Void Rush to try and get a kill. And now Shaco will just give a kill over to 4. That's a trade you don't want to take. 4 is 2-0 on the Draven.
Yeah, not really worth on that one. They look for the pick onto Fred. They could have just taken the flash and gotten away, but instead they overcommit.
But it's sleeping again. Takeset was pushing the wave. So they engage with their support and jungle without their AD carry, so they weren't at a numbers advantage.
I mean, I think the play was fine if they just back off after they get the flash. You take the flash, you're like, that's an advantage, we'll leave. But it was just Bifrost being a little too greedy and thinking, oh, we've chunked him out, we need to take the kill now. And as a result, you end up giving another kill to this Draven who's already extremely strong. And with Draven's build path, you can quickly just eliminate Pedersen as a useful champion because he's just never going to be able to poke out Draven right now, especially once he finishes that Bloodthirster. And then on top of that, his damage is enough that he can actually potentially chunk out Pedersen with just one auto attack. Now, because Atlando moved bot lane immediately after that, a critical thing is they missed a wave. So you'll see there's a CS difference between AD carries right now for about 20. That is because they rotated bot as soon as possible. What this does mean, however, they already have vision control. So Atlando very much focused on stacking up these dragons to the point that they even denied a bit of gold from their AD carry. But it does mean that you can see Jolbu walking down. Andreas actually coming too, so in a prime position to set up for this one. Atlando very much focused on this Dragon Soul win condition. And Bifrost, I don't think you're in a position to contest this one.
Well, this is one of the things you were hitting on last week, Hawks, is, you know, if you're playing against a scaling comp, every time you take a dragon, you deny them a little bit more time. You push that timer back for this to scale. And obviously, they haven't drafted a strictly fully scaling comp here for the side of Bifrost, but they do outscale. One thing I want to note
is the big thing.
Yes.
It forces the enemy to contest you because right now Atlando, next dragon puts them on soul point and the following is the soul. And it means Bifrost, if they're not ready to take that, might be forced. And actually an all-income spot. Unfortunately, we missed that. But that wasn't good for Atlando is all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's really bad. Actually, Bifrost also getting loads of plates in this top side. Fiala, this is what you're saying. If you don't punish this Riven early, if you don't get ahead of the curve, as it gets later, Riven does start to deal pretty well in this matchup.
Concerning thing is here is that those dragons, yes, it does set up that soul win condition, but Bifrost after that play are up in gold, and I think they're pretty happy to take a fight on those terms. They just cashed in on a ton of plates topside, giving the Riven some more economy, and on top of that, Takeset and Pedersen getting that kill, the 2v2 kill, getting both of them. Pretty huge in this situation. So Atlando Looking pretty rough. And this is why usually teams don't prioritize the dragons so heavily. It's more about the heralds and setting up for towers. And critically, they ended up using their herald mid. And as a result, they didn't have a wave stacked up. They weren't in a position to take the tower itself. All they got was plates, but that tower still stands. And we're a minute away from 14 minutes. It's unlikely Atlando are going to get first tower blood at this point. And it means the tempo of the game has slowed down a bit. One of the big things with taking a tower is obviously you get that extra initial gold, but also it's now a longer lane for you to balance waves around. And I feel like Atlando haven't made the most of their early pressure. And as a result, it sort of led to a pretty slow early game. And it means that they haven't got a significant goal lead. Yes, they're stacked up with these dragons.
Oh, they're teleporting in. They're looking to come in, see if they can make this play happen. Fiala tries to jump in. The broken wings will get interrupted by the hook. Fred's able to make his way out, but the Whirling Death comes down. Fred running low. Wind Slash will chunk him down. Jacob closing in, and Jolbu, he's looking to jump forward. That's going to be the Lifeform Disintegration Ray melting through Bifrost, but both of the teams just disengaged from that skirmish in the bot side. A lot burnt and nothing gained.
Big win for Atlando, though. The TP came out from Fiala, and they essentially got nothing for it. It's given Andreas a little bit of alone time on the top side, but the critical thing is look at that dragon time in the top left, 2.5 minutes, and then look at Andreas's TP. That is almost going to be up by the time the dragon spawns, and that means he can just sit in the side lane, apply pressure, and either Fiala answers him, or there's going to be a situation where Bifrost end up potentially contesting that dragon, but trade a tower for it. So puts Atlando in a good spot here, an avenue for them to get an advantage later on, just because a proactive play from Bifrost didn't work. The setup wasn't really there, and I think they could potentially have held off on that one. I think they could have waited for Atlando to go a little bit aggressive. Then you land some CC from Pedersen. You have the ultimate from the Zyra available. It's very hard to disengage once that's already been applied. And that could have set them up for a better TP play. But Bifrost, ultimately, they still get this bot lane tower. Reset coming in from Atlando gives them the opportunity to pressure up. But the counterpoint is Atlando had already sort of moved their resources to the top side of the map.
Yeah, mid lane turret will fall as well here. So the Rift Herald will be nice and easy pick up. Shackle trying to scatter out the Void Seeker. He knows it's going on, but there's nothing he can do about it. His AD carry and his support are just way too far away. And Shackle needs to be a little careful. Here. The hook's going a little bit wide. Fiala trying to see if he can come down. The ball gets moved forward. They're trying to get into that pit in time. Shockwave could be big here. They jump in. Shackle running away, continuing to keep the aggro on that Rift Herald as the Lifeform Disintegration Rare. Two-man Shockwave comes down. The Wind Slash will do a little bit. Now they're rooting up, trying to get that damage. The flash, the knock-up, the Void Rush comes down, and Shackle will trade out 1-for-1. Fiala looking to see if he can make something happen, but that's going to be a flash by Jolbu away. Bifrost, they trade 1-for-1, but they lose the Rift Herald.
Yeah, pretty heavy contest on both sides, despite both AD carries not actually being there in the fight. Ultimately, it's an even trade in terms of kills, but Atlando get the Herald, so they'll take that in this situation. I think just overall, a little bit messy from both of these teams. Their setup for these plays hasn't been exactly perfect. Andreas could have been bot lane in that situation, catching the wave. He had TP to join the fight, and that meant Thor would have been there. They would have been much stronger to sort of force Bifrost away from that. So ultimately, the rough lane assignment there ended up costing them what could have been a big fight that they would win there. Now Dragon spawning up. That TP advantage, see, this is my issue, is that TP advantage is available, but look at where Andreas is on the map.
Didn't even stand in the bush, but they're going to use everything on him. Lifeform Disintegration Ray's almost enough to kill Shackle, but a heal comes out by Takeset. Fiala able to jump away with the broken wings. Shackle low HP. They're looking to collapse in here. Fiala has got his ultimate available, looking to jump on. That's the Ragnarok already burned. Takeset is just mincing through Jolbu's health, and Fiala takes him down. Jungle are dead. That means Bifrost will be able to pick up this dragon and put a stall on that Ocean Soul.
I don't know, really rough from Atlando. I mean, they were split there, approaching the river, which obviously set them up to get Jolbu picked. But also, Andreas has TP advantage. Make use of that. Apply pressure somewhere on the map. Why is the Renekton group with you when he can potentially threaten that TP? It's just a really big question mark. And that's given Bifrost an avenue not only to claw a dragon back, which means There isn't as much
Fiala
concern, but yeah, Engage coming in.
trying to get 1 versus 2 here. Doesn't have any life steal, doesn't have any sustain, but will be able to hop over the wall. The Ignite is burning down, and Fiala trying to use the fancy feet here to dodge as much as possible. Is able to make his way away from the hook. Gets the shield off and just going for the execution. Fiala will give Fred the kill.
But you waste a lot of time, and the kill goes over the support, so you'll absolutely take that in that situation. And NG able to apply some pressure, and critically, Thor is now alone on the top side. So all that time they spent bot lane, it drew members of Atlando away from the top side of the map, and that now means Bifrost can lean over there. They have vision control in the red side jungle, and this tower is theirs to take. So that is the cost of chasing Fiala for quite a bit too much longer than they would have liked to.
Also, Jacob's the one who picked up the Eye of the Herald, and he's currently stuck mid lane, so they can't give Jolbu the Herald and like slap it down top side, bot lane or something, and try and, you know, crack open another turret for them. We are standing on a ward here though for Bifrost, so they are going to get spotted out. There is a big wave. Also, they want to go catch. As Fiala now making his way over to catch this wave. Got that Vamp Scepter, so building towards that Death Stance. Life does get a bit easier on the river once you got the Death Stance, and a little bit more sustainability.
Less vulnerable to burst as well is a crucial factor. Obviously, the more CDR you can pick up, the better for the champion. Right now, you can see Atlando. The resets started coming in from Bifrost, particularly Shackle, and that means they can now apply pressure towards mid lane. No flash.
No flash. It's going to be melted. Jacob gets that kill, and nobody's really around to defend this. This tower should just die here. Shackle might be able to do a little something, but gets knocked up.
They're actually concerned. A flank is coming in here from the misfortune of all champions. She'll back away, but ultimately Atlando have to respect that, and that kind of came from Bifrost a little bit slow on their reset. Takeset and Pedersen, they went for that play where they try to pick Thor, and as a result, they spent way too much time top lane. It gave an avenue for Atlando to attack the mid lane. They end up getting a kill, they get the Herald charge off, but ultimately the tower doesn't fall. It's not really too bad for the side of Bifrost, but just a little bit of a costly mistake that shouldn't really have happened.
Yeah, playing with fire here. He's surrounded by multiple members from Atlando. Meanwhile, takes it now, building towards that Infinity Edge. Has got that BF sword in the inventory, but a bit of a way off before we see that item come through here. As Fiala is still playing a little scared from Andreas. That execution is cooling means the healing's not quite as much. He's got the cleaver, got the Tiamat. He's able to clear out the wave. When does the Riven start to take over this matchup? Providing Renekton's not ahead.
I think when you're at like 3-4 items, you can just win against the Renekton. He really just can't do enough damage to deal with you. And he runs out of steam before he can really manage you. I think at that point, Fiala just flat out wins, irrespective of what Andreas does, unless Fiala massively misplays it. Earlier than that, the Riven can win, but it's about finding the windows. Looked like a play was potentially going to come out there, but unfortunately doesn't. But yeah, I'd say Fiala, there's still a while before he can just force on Andreas and feel confident that he's absolutely going to win it. For now, the Renekton's still pretty strong in the current situation. He's still bulky. Got that Black Cleaver backing him up. Fiala just have to respect that in the lane matchup. Be a little cautious. Right now, we've sort of split the map up into a 1-3-1, and it looks like both sides just happy to sort of farm this one out to a degree. There's not a ton Bifrost can do to find avenues to punish Bifrost right now, because Atlando, the vision control just isn't there around the river, and this is something you got to praise Bifrost for. If you look through the river, there's just a great amount of vision spread between like where the Baron and the Dragon is, and it means it's safe for Takeset and Pedersen to step up. Normally, there's a little bit of a concern when you don't have that mid lane tower, you don't have that like bastion of defense behind you. But in this situation, they have the vision to move around pretty freely.
Fiala looking for Andreas here, has still got that wind slash. He's going to throw it down. Andreas healing up. The Void Rush will secure the kill. Now they might look to try and see if they can turn this here. Jacob throws out the Haystack Hosepipe, has the backup of Jolbu. Shackle flashed. I think
flash to dodge the Q coming out from Jacob. I think just the slow from that on top of the Lifeform Disintegration Ray can like just 100% kill you. So Shackle just trying to buy time before his team got there. Ultimately, they get the kill. They're able to secure this Dragon as a result. And Bifrost in a pretty comfortable spot so far. That vision control mid lane, it's a critical thing that means Atlando aren't able to move their jungler around very effectively. He has to take much longer routes through their own jungle. Otherwise, he's going to be spotted on vision. And Bifrost, with that numbers advantage, able to just push up, take that mid lane tower, and they're in a great spot looking towards the rest of this game. Now, just over 2,000 gold up in the lead. They've equalized in those dragons, and this is where you're going to sort of ask the question is, how much is that Infernal on that Cloud doing for Atlando? And the answer is very little. And I feel like their big priority on securing those dragons compared to sort of trying to snowball their lanes may have cost them to a degree. I feel like there wasn't enough early pressure look towards bot lane. They didn't really try and pressure Takeset and Pedersen too much. Andreas and Fiala, that lane matchup ended up being pretty stagnant. And I think we set a pace for this game for Atlando to be a lot faster than it was. We wanted them to be aggressive in the early game. We wanted them to look for snowballing their lanes, particularly on the back of Jolbu, and it hasn't come to fruition. And now they're in a really difficult spot because when a team fight breaks out, you have this monstrously strong Misfortune. You have the team fighting power for Zyra off of Orianna. And then you have the divers of Shackle and Fiala. And I really struggle to see how Atlando are going to set up effectively if they can't find a pick. And that's a big caveat. They have to try and find a pick, but it's very hard to do without vision.
You can see them eking forward there. They're constantly looking and trying to sniff out some little bit of vision for themselves. But so far, not really moving their ward line beyond that pit, beyond the river. Finally now they're feeling a little bit more experimental here. Wanting to step up, wanting to see if they can clear out this ward. We'll get the pink here in the bush. They do take that down. Now, starting to get some control around the Baron pit, but they haven't really got complete dominance. You see there is this little area of kind of fear almost itching at the back of Bifrost as Fred does look for a hook. Isn't able to find himself anyone though, unfortunately for himself. Now Bifrost moving towards around this blue side jungle.
Oh, Andreas could be caught here.
He could get caught here. He's just going to slice over the wall. He knew that they were there as a big group.
He should expect it, but I think this shows the current state of the game is that Bifrost, their control over mid is so huge. They have such a strong amount of vision. They've just pushed up into the enemy jungle, and it means right now Atlando really can't get into any aggressive positions because they have to take the safe through their own jungle. They have to be cautious about who from Bifrost might be there. Right now, a reset is coming in for the side of Bifrost, so Atlando can potentially start to push up and contest this vision. It's really important that you find somewhere that you can attack Bifrost from. This might be it. Energy potentially overstepping here.
Okay, we'll get slowed down twice there. By form disintegration ray proc from the true damage is enough to run him low. Jolbu.
No TP on energy, remember. I feel like they could set up for like a Baron bait in this situation, or at least pressure this top lane tower. They will get this. They can then push into the enemy jungle and potentially contest. Remember, there's no energy on the map right now. They have a little bit of a window. They should at least be trying to clear the vision out, but Jacob actually going for a reset here. They found an avenue, potentially attack.
You can see he's just going to finish off his death cap. He's running the Haunting guys as well, so getting ready for that Leandries. Probably be the next item here.
I think it's a big thing for the Lifeform's disintegration way, just having that Haunting guys that stacks up the damage.
The madness, I think.
Yeah, ultimately, they didn't really do much to Bifrost there. Yes, they got the chunk out on energy, but they didn't clear that much vision. They did get the top tower, however, but that's not really going to be an instrumental one in dictating this game. Can have a look at the gold here, and the big advantage is for Jacob in the mid lane. He's performing pretty solidly on this Vel'Koz, but just you look at the difference between 80 carries, and that's where I'm concerned. This Misfortune, super powerful right now. Really in a comfortable position just to take over these team fights, and it's the setup is so easy. Is all you need to do is Atlando will be looking to push forward to go aggressive. You just layer down those ultimates from the Orianna, the Zyra, the Misfortune, and a team fight essentially plays itself. All you need to do is just not get picked at the start. That is a critical thing. Don't miss position, don't get picked, and it's essentially really easy for you to set up, especially in these choke points. You can see where Atlando need to push through if they want to try and get to this dragon. Jolbu takes damage from the plants, and the fact that there's a Leandries as well means he gets poked out pretty significantly. It's very hard for Atlanta to push in here.
Well, they are trying it. GA available onto Andreas, so somewhat tankier, but you can see that Leandries burn just ticking away slowly but surely as Jacob has to burn the hose pipe to try and clear out this wave, and that is going to be third Drake. It is Drake's soul here, Fred. We'll take a shockwave in a full combo. But Urson picks himself that kill up.
I mean, taking down the Thresh is huge in this situation. He's the one who is going to provide the avenue to finding the pick, but the ult comes in.
That's pretty big ult. It's going to chunk a little bit here onto Bifrost, but they're
Doesn't really do a ton.
fairly comfortable. They've got triple ocean as well, so they've got a fair amount of healing.
Fam Scepter on takes it as well. Means he is just going to be able to sustain that back up if he gets the time to touch a wave. Lando feeling in a really rough spot here. I think ultimately you're waiting for Bifrost to start up the Baron. That's your avenue into the game. That's where you can start to pressure these, because if you find a good angle to attack this backline, if you find flanks from multiple angles, that can be the win condition. Because right now, if you run at Misfortune, at Orianna, at Zyra in a straight line from one direction, you're just going to die.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Andreas going to lose his GA at the best here. Tries to turn it around. A wind slash will take him out on that front, and he is doomed, my friend. Does have to flash, but Fiala comes down. The Void Rush to follow as well. And Shackle with a furious bite will secure the kill. Did trade out flash for a flash from Fiala there, but
you get
Andreas,
a GA.
no GA.
That's the huge thing. That's one of the things that means Andreas can dive the backline of Bifrost. Even if he takes a ton of damage from all that AoE, he would have had the GA to sort of revive him back up, but that now being on cooldown really limits the effectiveness of Lando in these team fights. You can see the return for this as Lando has started to prioritize some vision towards this Baron area. But Pedersen and Energy going to push in very close, but not close enough.
You can see with Takeset's build as well, it's such an expensive build. Kind of shows you how far ahead he is. He's only like half an item ahead, technically, or 4. But that's a Bloodthirster, Infinity Edge, and Essence Reaver. Draven, likewise, also has a very expensive build of the Bloodthirster and the Essence Reaver. Sorry, with the Infinity Edge. But even so, Takeset very, very strong right now.
And just so much AD as well, which is just going to go directly into that ultimate. It just makes it so threatening, and as well hard to punish with that Bloodthirster. Even if Jolbu and Andreas dive, these champions are not that strong at this point. They haven't snowballed. They're in the later stages of the game where they are pretty weak. I feel like if Takeset and Jolbu just auto-attack each other, Takeset wins.
That's going to be a shockwave. Ragnarok gets traded out there. Takeset's going to take a lot of damage. 4 looks to come forward. Gets the heal. Gets the auto-attack and a shutdown for himself. No shockwave, remember. Fiala looking to run away. GA down on Andreas, and he takes a lot of damage from those plants. Fiala with the broken blade available. Not going to use the ultimate now.
Takeset just getting overhyped there, stepping up way too far forwards to try and kill Jolbu. Really costly in that situation, because you burn both summoners from Takeset, makes him a lot more vulnerable in these team fights, and you just gave over a massive amount of gold owed to Thor. It's not just a shutdown gold from killing you, but it's also cashing in those stacks. And we're going to see him recall now. I think pickup just a... We'll see. We'll see what he has enough gold
Rapid
for.
fire cannon finished, and a Zeal.
He already had the rapid fire finished.
Oh, he finished it, so he just got
He finished it before that.
Okay,
So he
cool.
gets a Zeal on the dagger. It's decent.
That'll explain the extra range on that auto attack.
Yeah, I was maybe overhyping it a little bit. Thought he'd have a bit more from that, but ultimately had just reset. It's still, it's allowing him to catch up, and right now, compared to Takeset, he's equal in terms of items.
Actually, I think you find he has an additional dagger.
True, but there's more expensive items on Takeset.
True.
So, you know, goes both ways.
So Takeset's playing for the team. See, 4 goes for the dagger. Takeset goes for the control ward.
That's a difference.
That's a team player there, my dude.
But you'll see that on Atlando, everyone else has a lot of control wards.
Yes.
So
But they're like 4. We got you, mate.
the team are playing for him.
Actually, yeah, that's...
Takeset playing for the team, Atlando are playing for Thor. That's the difference.
Well, it is a Draven.
Yeah, true.
He is the star.
Did just miss that cannon, which is kind of insane when you think about how much AD he has, but happens sometimes.
Happens to the best of us.
So they're getting some vision control here onto the Baron, and the reason this is possible is because you look at the boss side of the map, everyone at Bifrost is really set up on getting this Ocean Dragon.
Takeset's just going to take this.
Yeah, no real contest. There's a lot of deep vision. That could have been something, but realistically, no one in position who has any damage. Realistically, even if Jolbu goes over the wall with Fred, they actually don't kill the Orianna. They just don't have the damage. So a little bit of respect there. Dragon spawning at 15. This is going to be Bifrost Soul. I don't think there's much they can do. What Atlando could look for is they could rush towards the Baron and try and take it down or start it up before...
Oh, you lose your support. Takes
Why?
it. Able to find that kill. Shockwave lands as well. Jungle is going low. Takes a hosepipe for the slow. The Life Form Disintegration Ray gets used by Jacob, and this will just be Ocean Soul.
Yeah.
They're going to run over wards, so they're going to see this happening. So takes it. Probably will just clear this out with Shackle. The rest of the team moving over. Baron's been started, but they're too low. It's too risky.
I mean, it's just, we saw this before from Fred. I mean, why are you trying to face check that area? You know you don't have any vision control.
Fiala pops the ultimate, is closing that distance. The flash gets used by Jolbu. Dodged away from the wind slash.
He may not die, but him having no flash means there's very little chance he can ever contest his Baron and go for a steal. No way to flash over the wall, obviously, and try and smite that one. So I think at this point, Baron just gone. So not only did Atlando end up giving over the soul, the Dragon's going to go
though.
through. I mean,
No blast code. How do you get in?
Yeah, that's the thing, the flash being down. That's all you needed from the Olaf. And it's a little bit frustrating because I feel like Atlando could have taken that opportunity. They had decent vision control around their red side jungle, so they could have used the lantern from Fred, whisked Jolbu over, gotten over the wall with a blast cone, or potentially used the lantern hook combo to get them over, started the Baron, and potentially looked to turn while Takeset still has no flash. And while the critical thing is Bifrost were running into an area they didn't have vision. But instead, Fred face checks once more, gets picked off, they lose the soul, they lose the Baron as well, and it's just, it felt like they kind of felt forced to contest this soul, but really, it's not that big of a deal. Yes, it's powerful, I'm not denying that. But if you take the fight, you lose it in that. I mean, it wasn't even a fight. It was just you get picked in that situation, you give over the soul and the Baron as well. And the Baron is the more important objective right now. It's obviously not going to last as long, but I don't feel like this game is going to last too much longer either. At this current state it's in now. The Energy taking quite a lot of damage there on the back of that poke.
Yeah, Energy. Shockwaves are big, but he's still one of the weaker members here. The Whirling Death will connect onto him double time. Fred's actually coming in. They're actually looking for this. Andreas got the home guards.
It's too deep
has
now.
the slice and dice. He's going to get slowed down by the Make It Rain, and Andreas just cannot dive that.
Yeah, I mean, they managed to kite away. Bifrost, extra movement speed coming out from the Oriana, and obviously the strut from the Misfortune. It was a rough TP flank. I appreciate the effort, though. You have to go for those. But now you put yourself in a position, you don't have the TP for Andreas. It's very hard to find a flank. And like I said, if you run straight at this composition of Bifrost, you're just going to die. You're just going to get absolutely melted into pieces. Andreas doesn't do good in the side lane anymore. I talked about how when you get to those 3-4 item points, it's going to get difficult. Fiala has built items that serve him pretty heavily in the 1v1. But you look at Andreas, the GA isn't great in the 1v... Oh, actually, Engage coming in.
Comes in. Andreas looking to jump on the Predestin there. Takes it. Goes golden. A two-man shockwave by Energy into the bullet time. A big old melt will come down, and that's a shutdown. Takes it. Holds his life as they're kiting Andreas away. Fiala finds another one. That's going to be the res coming forward as Shackle is looking to run 4 down. Can't quite get him, but he flashes forward and gets an easy execution. Andreas in the middle of everyone will fall down. And Bifrost get the ace. They have Baron. They have Soul. And they will have the game.
Yeah, he's one here to close out. And it's a little bit frustrating for Atlando. It felt like there were definitely avenues they could have attacked more. It felt like they were a little bit lost on what they should be looking for to try and contest. Ultimately, they needed more aggression in the early game. They needed to snowball harder. And then when it came to the later stages, they needed some snappier decision-making if they're going to find their way into it. I think Bifrost, they challenged them in a lot of ways. I think even individually, the fact that they were dying 2v2 in the bot lane was a massive struggle. And then as soon as they lost control of the game, it felt like there was no way they got it back, especially up against their team composition. You just can't face check it.
Yeah, you see, like, Energy he gave over a few kind of silly kills from misplays, but all he really had to do was find those good shockwaves, which he did. He found some seriously good shockwaves in that game. Most of the time, just kind of zoning Jolbu out by just taking so much of his health that if he tried to run through with Ragnarok on, he would die before he got to wherever he needed to get to.
You saw in that last one, even when they found the flank, the shockwave came down, the ult from Takeset, and even though it only channeled for like a second, that was enough. That was just enough damage. Fight was essentially over at that point. I think that was way past the point where they could really contest it. I think the decision-making around the Soul was rough. I think they should look at it because... It's difficult because you're a team who wants to be aggressive, wants to step in the early game, but they miss that mark. I think when you get to the later stages, sometimes you have to go, right, we can't contest this dragon. We can't walk into that area. let's contest something else. Let's set up vision somewhere else and look for a pick. And I think they should have played around that more, because I think too often when they saw the dragon setup come out from Bifrost, they felt like they had to contest this, had to walk into it. And it's just never going to work up against that team, because when you're in the choke point up against a Zyra Misfortune, you just lose automatically.
Our Bifrost on this bounce back, taking out Singularity last week, getting themselves a win here versus Atlando. Sure, Atlando are a bit lower down in the rankings, but Bifrost is starting to climb up there. And now, if Vipers lose to Nordivind, I know that's a big ask, but if Vipers lose to Nordivind, they'll be tied with Vipers.
Yeah, I would like to see a bit more from Bifrost, because I think Atlando, not the hardest opponent they'll face. And it's just proven they're a little bit more consistent, because obviously they've had great matches up against the likes of Singularity and Vipers, but it's just, there's been some games I've really thought, what is the game plan here? What is the draft trying to pull together here? And even in some of their wins, I was a little bit confused where they were sort of going. So definitely need a bit more convincing, but they looked good today.
Yeah,
so
they definitely did.
I'll praise them for that. And after the first round robin, they are up. They are positive. They have 4 wins, 3 losses. So in a good place to sort of potentially make a playoff spot if they continue on this trajectory. I think it's just coming through the second round. Again, the consistency and just finding how they want to play against the other teams in the league.
Well, we are going to cut to a quick break, and when we're back with game 2 of the day, it's going to be Hybrid taking on Hiller Rod, so don't go anywhere. We'll see you in a break.